Okay, it's the end of the session. I'm here without Idgie. She's, I think, stuck in the house, and this is Idgie's roadmap to success. So Idgie being a rescue dog, we don't know what her backstory is, but a lot of times when we have a rescue dog, we have a natural human psychology is to feel like, you know what, this dog went through a really bad experience. I need to just give it the best possible life, which is awesome. But the way that we go about trying to achieve this often leads to a lot of behavior problems. So a lot of times when we have a rescue dog, we don't have any rules for them or any structure because we feel like they had such a hard time we're letting them do whatever they want. Kids, employees, people feel better. Although we say we don't like rules, it's comforting to know that, you know, my responsibility ends at this point, and I don't have to worry about what's beyond this wall. And that comes from a leader demonstrating through their actions. I see that leader is handling things. Dogs are very much, they need to see us do things to understand that we are in charge of doing it, or we're responsible or able to achieve that. And so a lot of times what we do is we just kind of remove all rules and structure, and that can stress the dog out because it creates what a muddled leader-follower dynamic. And so my philosophy is, as a dog psychologist, I want the dogs to identify to us the same way that children do to parents. I'm a member of the group. I can make suggestions, I can complain, but I have a vote, but I don't have that final vote. So I don't have the burden of responsibility on weighing on my shoulders. And so I can kind of be carefree and skip around the pool and do whatever it is. Mom have to actually worry about savings and retirement and all the rest of these things in life. And so when we're mature, we can handle those things. No dog is really mature enough to be in charge of humans. And so when we have a rescue dog, although it seems like the good thing to do to not have any rules and structure, it actually can often cause anxiety. So the first thing we talked about was exercise. Now we just got done doing a little bit of an exercise. There's a pool in the backyard. And so to do the exercise, what I would have you do, and make sure that the dog is hungry, that will help, and we have really good treats. So we're gonna have one person on each corner. And the starting point we did right here. So the dog doesn't achieve the treat until it goes all the way around the pool. Now I was being very regimented saying it can only go in a counterclockwise manner. If you wanna do counterclockwise, that's fine too. And some dogs actually are right-sided or left-sided. They're better doing circles one way or the other. She did it, so I don't think there would be a right side, left side here. And some dogs do better if you only go one direction, but if she goes both directions, that's fine, but it should be the direction you want. So don't let her go halfway and then turn around and reward her. So the only way she gets the reward is by completing each of the 4 steps. Now at first we're gonna have one person on each corner. And so I'm gonna be here, and here she is. And then we had one of the girls over here at that corner. So she called her. And she used a very nice sing-songy, high-pitched voice, which is very attractive for dogs. Now, if the dog doesn't look at you, what I have you do is crouch down when the dog looks at you. The lower we are, the more engaging and accessible we are for the dog. So if you're looking at the dog, you say the dog's name in a sing-songy voice and she doesn't come, hold your hand up with a treat like this, and then crouch down, and lower the treat with you. And when the dog comes to you, give it the treat. Then the next person who's in the next corner is watching. So as soon as the treat is delivered, that person needs to say, call the dog by name in that high-pitched, excited voice. And you can also jump up and down and act excited, or you can crouch down. And after a while, she'll just know what's going on. She knows I go to the next person and get a treat. So we do that for all 3 people, and then she gets back to the original person. The original person is gonna have a clicker. When she gets there, we're gonna click, and then we're gonna give her the treat, and we're gonna call it, take a lap. Or whatever the word is you want to use. And then as soon as I do that, the next person, the person over in the corner calls and she goes there. So we want her kind of going around. Once we get to the point where she will immediately go to the next person and one call, we don't have to crouch, we don't have to be excited, then we're gonna basically have this person that's in the corner move about 5 or 6, maybe a quarter of the way down the side of the pool. So now she's got to go around the corner there, and that next person's over there is gonna be on the diving board. And if that is too much, then maybe we have the person is here in the corner, about 5 or steps there, and the other person's in the corner as well. So we're gonna shuffle the pieces around. The idea is we kind of gradually move the people around, and eventually we'll only have 3 people around the circle, around the pool. Then eventually 2, and then eventually the dog just will take the whole lap and come back here and get that reward. And if the dog doesn't want to do it, if you start getting frustrated or she starts getting frustrated, make sure you stop on the good repetition. We always want to end on a positive one. Sometimes you can throw a treat halfway between you and the dog to get the dog lured to come to you. But if the dog turns and goes the other direction, she doesn't get any treats for that. So she's got to complete the circuit, which one way or the other. And if you notice that she goes better clockwise versus counterclockwise, go with the flow. But this is a nice way. Eventually when you do this, you can say, take a lap, and she runs around the pool and comes back and gets that treat, takes another lap. And this is a nice creative form of exercise. So we can also practice calling her I would like to do this because it's a repetitive and a circular motion is kind of helpful for dogs, and just because it's a nice way of calibrating a certain amount of exercise. But you could also have one person there, one person there, one person in the corner here, one person here, and practice just her recall. Just come to the person. And after she figured out, she started running towards the person. That's more efficient exercise. So we need to come up with some creative ways of exercising. The Guardians do a good job of exercising her, but it's not always reasonable to take a dog for a half an hour, 30, 40-minute walk if we have other things going on. And so this is something we can do in our yard. We can do it while we're on the phone or while the kids can help. And it's a nice contained thing that is, if she's running, it's more efficient than a walk. Now walks, I'd like to continue the walks, but it's important to understand that on a walk, a dog burns more energy by sniffing than they do for the locomotion of walking. So if your dog is on a walk and she wants to stop and sniff, stop and let your dog sniff. A lot of times we have a circuit, we want to complete our circuit, and that completes the walk. Really, it's more of a duration thing. So just say if I have 30 minutes, I'm going to walk this way for 15 minutes. At 15-minute mark, I cross the street and we have fresh sniffs on the way back. I don't care if we only go 4 houses, because the goal is not the duration or the distance, it's the duration. And so after a while, you'll notice that she's going to be more relaxed. Now, she's not a huge sniffing dog, and I'm hoping that as we stop to let her figuratively smell the roses, that she starts doing that more and more. If she doesn't, you can get some finely shredded cheese. Make sure she's not lactose intolerant. Some dogs are lactose intolerant. But basically, you go out ahead of your side on the course and just sprinkle a little bit of cheese, maybe about that portion of cheese, and spread it so it's not in one clump. She has to really work for it in the grass. And then you kind of lead her, and then she go out apart from her, and you're putting it maybe one on each, in between each driveway, somewhere in the grass on this side of the sidewalk or this side of the sidewalk. And maybe at first it's between every driveway there's a little sliver of cheese, and you lead her right to it. But every time you do it, put the cheese in different places. After a while, she's going to start looking at the ground for this cheese and sniffing this cheese. And she has difficulty doing it on a walk, do it in your backyard here, get her used to it. And when she does it, call it treasure or booty. Come up with a funny word. So that way you say booty, and she's like, booty? There's booty around? And she starts looking around and sniffing. When she's sniffing the ground, it's very stimulating, it's relaxing. Also, she's not focusing on the boogeyman or the other dog or all the rest of that stuff. And it's very natural and calming for dogs to sniff on walks. So that's the cheese is something I use for dogs who don't naturally sniff. But usually dogs get into it right away, and they're loving the walk, and you take your mental baggage out of it, because instead of you getting frustrated, the dog's not hurrying along, you're able to slow down and cool your jets and relax. And I find for myself, it's relaxing for me. It helps me just as much as it helps the dog. You could also consider getting her a doggy backpack. If you get one of those, it should be about $45 to $70. If you get one that's too cheap, they'll fall apart. You can get a really robust one if you go camping, but it's often overkill. What it is, you just put little bottles of water, bags of sand. Don't overdo it, but that makes the walk more efficient for her. Another thing that we do is scent games. So hiding treats. At first I would hide them in the house and have the girls help you. Now don't put it under carpet, because a lot of times the dog will dig through the carpet to get to it. So at first it's just around the corner or next to a leg of a couch or something like that. And every time the dog licks up the treat, we say hunt, search, find it, query, whatever the word is that you want to mean. So now eventually you say query, and she's like, there's 5 treats around, and she starts sniffing the ground looking for them. Again, stimulating, energy depleting, draining, and it gives the dog something to do. Now, I also talked about using a snuffle mat and an Omega Paw treat ball, as well as other treat dispensing toys. Now, the snuffle mat, if you search on Amazon, you'll see the gray one that I actually showed you the video. It's the first one that appears on Amazon when you search for it. It's about $35. So you can work that in. We could actually help with that too. But you work that into the tassels, and then you put it down, and she's got to use her nose to find the food and find the kibble, then lick the tassel off, then lick up that kibble, and then repeat that 200 to 400 pieces of kibble. That makes her earn her food, which boosts her self-esteem and confidence, which is great for dogs that have separation anxiety. It also slows down the process, and that makes feeding almost like a walk. So there are a couple of them. When I had puppies, I always try to have 5 of them. So a snuffle mat and an Omega Paw treat ball, I would get the largest one, it's about $20. And then look for treat dispensing toys. Something else, do you guys ever use Kongs?
We've tried them.
Did you fill them with peanut butter?
Yeah.
So sometimes you can fill it with peanut butter. Sometimes I take the treat that I have and I put one treat in, and then I put the peanut butter on top of it. And so now they can smell that out of the other hole. And I've seen people take their kibble and soak their kibble with warm water. It becomes consistency of mashed potatoes, mash it up, and then put that in there. And sometimes people will put cheese, melted cheese in there, or a combination of all these things. But it's a nice way to get the dog to be preoccupied. When they kill an animal, they don't eat the whole thing. They tear a hole in it and they pull the flesh out of it. The Kong is designed to kind of satiate that side of primal urgency. And so once your dog gets into it, that's a nice thing to keep her preoccupied with. You can also, I've seen people take like a bully stick and stick a bully stick in there, and they're using that to hold on to it. And then getting her edibles like you guys already have are good things to do as well. So if there's a stressful situation, we give her something that she can chew on that's ingestible. That's a nice way to channel that frustration and anxiety into an appropriate venue and leave it there. It's cathartic for a lot of dogs. Before we go to the snuffle mats and all that stuff, we need to switch from what we call free feeding, which is right now food is left in her bowl. Dogs spend 90% of the time in the wild looking for food. It is the most important activity for them. So we want to make her earn her food and make it not so accessible, because we don't appreciate things we have too much access to. So what I would do is I'd put food in the bowl. Don't let her eat it. Use those escalating consequences I talked to. So stand up and walk in between her and the bowl. Keep your authority pointed at her. And when she sits or lies down, then you grab a chip or cracker or something and eat 5 or more bites. Then you go over next to the bowl and you tap the bowl a couple times. And don't overdo it. If she doesn't come within a minute, then I pick it up and dump it. Now you have to make sure she understands she can't eat it. Sometimes they get a little confused if you block and now you're not blocking. So I might make a couple of treats, make a little bit of a trail, or I toss 1 or 2 towards her to get her to come towards it. But don't be surprised if she goes a day or 2 without eating. I don't eat when you tell me. I eat when I feel like eating. That's fine, but the kitchen is no longer here open all the time here. In the wild, if she chooses not to eat, the dog behind her in rank is going to eat her portion. They're not going to save anything for her. I like to say for dogs, eating is like for us driving on the 405 freeway. When there's nobody ahead of you, you go as fast as your car will possibly go, because that will only last about a mile. They don't know when the next meal will come, so they eat as much as they possibly can. So we want to make the eating a very primarily important activity like it naturally is for them, and have the humans have dominion over the food. So basically, and you can have the girls do this as well, and they give her permission. She comes and eats. As soon as she gets done eating and walks away, we pick up the bowl, we dump it empty, but it's important that we put the empty bowl on the ground. If we take the whole bowl up, we're looked at as taking away the food. And then there's no food again until the next meal. If she goes longer than 3 days without eating, message me, but it usually means somebody in the house is cheating and giving her some food. Hunger becomes your ally, so don't cheat. Once you get to the point where you tell her to eat and she eats, use that passive training we talked about and come up with a funny command word. Call it lasagna or meatball or whatever, pork chop, whatever you want to say. So every time for 4 months she takes her first bite of food, she hears the word pork chop. So now pork chop becomes my command word to eat. Now, one of the things that I do is I put the food down, I put my hand on the bowl, on top of the bowl, when the dog tries to go for it, and when the dog backs off. So if this is the dog and this is the bowl's like right down here, the dog starts coming for it, I move my hand down to the bowl. The dog backs away, my hand comes up. So I'm kind of mirroring the dog. Now if the dog sits down, then I take my hand up, it gets up, I put my hand back down. And if you'll do this several times, and eventually the dog will sit, and you take your hand off and she stays seated. And then you let her have permission to eat. And the next time you raise your hand and you wait 1 second after she sits then 2 seconds and 3 seconds, you gradually elongate that until eventually she just sits there and she looks to you waiting for permission to eat. Dogs do eat in the order of their rank, so make sure you're eating, whoever's feeding her is eating something at 5 or more bites first. Then she eats, and whatever she leaves, it gets dumped and the empty bowl is there. So every time she walks by the bowl, she sees the bowl is empty, and it helps her remember that's not always there now. So I better fuel up. And eventually, once she's eating consistently, when you give her permission and she eats all of her food, if she's only eating 50% of it, start feeding her 50% of that portion. We want to get her used to eating all of her food. Her weight looks fine, but later in life that might become an issue. So we just want her to recognize when the human tells you to eat, you need to eat. This will help if she has medication or something later in life she needs to eat food with. All right, so let me see. So that's exercise. Look for other forms of exercise. And remember, when she's naughty or she's digging or doing something you don't want, ask yourself how long it's been since she's had exercise. Set her up for success. And remember, the amount of exercise is going to vary. And you can exercise her before a walk, or if you're going to have guests come over. Maybe before guests come over, she needs 22 laps around the pool. And then she gets 10 minutes to rest, and then the guest comes over. That's going to help her feel a lot more relaxed. Maybe it's 7 laps before we go for a walk, or if there's construction or they're doing the landscaping or whatever it is. So we come up with different amounts of exercise to really help set that dog up for success. Exercise is going to make it easier to fix your problem, or it's going to amplify the problem you have. So when you're practicing the stay, like we talked about in the video above, make sure you're exercising her a little bit first. And again, play around those, don't do it too much, because I think at the end of the pool thing, I think she's just tired, and that's why she stopped performing. All right. So I also want to talk about a little clicker training. Now, I'd like you to do this about three or four more times. So you grab about 5 treats or 10 treats, and the girls can help with that. So you have the girl throw the treat on the ground, and you click. And maybe the second time, then you throw it on the ground, or have the girl do the whole thing. We want the girls to be as engaged as possible. The dog sees and respects them as authority figures, and will listen to them better. And it's better for the dog to see everybody as an authority figure. I can have more confidence in all of them. And so the clicker training, remember the click is to indicate you did what I wanted. So as soon as the butt hits the ground on a sit, that's when I click. Then I give the treat to reward for sitting down, and then I mark and say whatever the command word is. Remember, they hear the first word, so just say sit or down or crash or come or whatever the word is. So once you, and I would have you do it inside the house first. So maybe you're gonna do that about 3 or 4 more times where you throw the 10 treats on the ground. Do it maybe twice more today, do it once or twice tomorrow. By the time you see it, you should be done priming the clicker. That's what we call that. Then what I'd like you to do is grab a bunch of treats, and you might want to get yourself a little treat pouch like this so you can have them in there. And then the dog's like, ooh, she could be paying me off at any point. Yeah. So basically what you do then is in the house, you have the clicker, and the girls can do this as well. You walk around, walk a couple steps away from the dog and ask for a come. When she comes to you, click and give her the treat. Then take a couple steps away, and then when she comes to you this time, ask for a sit. You're gonna find after a while, she's just gonna start Piper following you around. And then you ask for a sit or a down or any other commands that she knows. You click when she does the command, you give her the treat, and then say the command word. After you've done it inside where she's really regimented and listening to you right away, then do about 3 or 4 inside, then walk outside. Now outside we have distractions. So it's natural for her to lose interest. We're helping her focus and practice on the easier scenario first, then we're going to intermediate, which is outside without a lot of craziness. And so again, you're gonna walk around the pool or around the yard and ask for come, sits, and lays down. If she's just following you, then wait for her to lose a little interest before you call her back again. So we're helping her disengage and re-engage with us and be rewarded for doing so. And that'll help her pay more attention to us. And we're only asking her once. So I say come and she doesn't come to me, within 3 seconds, I walk a couple more steps away and ask for a sit or a down or something else. And if she doesn't do it maybe 3 times in a row, then I just put it up and we're done with the game. I'm not gonna beg you to do it. I wanna give you treats, and all you have to do is sit or come and lay down. After a while, she's more motivated to do that, and you pull out that clicker and she's just gonna be spot on. So eventually, you could do that you can use it for the recall or anything else you wanna do, but I wanna get the dog programmed to listening to everybody in the family and responding much quicker. And the family, I would recommend you use a watchword of repeat or rerun. So that means you're saying the word multiple times. We only wanna say it one time. The more we say it, the less we mean it. And it's gonna be harder for the kids, but have the kids help you with that watchword. Maybe they can earn an M&M if they give you the watchword. You have to be careful, sometimes the kids become little hall monitors, but it's a nice way to get them involved. So those are things that you can do to get the dog listening to. And again, the more the dog is focused on you and obeying you and listening to you, the more confident they are in your leadership, that will have an impact on her insecurities. The other thing is I'd like you to go to YouTube or anywhere you want, and I'm happy to share videos with you as well, but the more skills that we have, the more confident we are. And so the same thing applies for dogs. So if you can teach her a new trick or command and try to set yourself a goal through the end of the summer. So once a week, we're gonna teach you a trick. Maybe at first we're gonna teach you sit pretty, which is easy. So you just put her in a sit, hold the treat here, and kind of rock her up until she goes like this, click, and then pop the treat in her mouth and say pretty or beg or whatever the word is you wanna use. Grovel is what I say. And so maybe the next one is teaching her, I call it sneaky. So I get her on a down, and then I drag the treat on the floor, and she has to crawl on the floor like an army crawl. And I say sneaky now. My dog flops to the ground and crawls across the floor, and people laugh. So again, coming up with these fun words, not only does it build her confidence, but also is a nice way to distract her from things that she might not necessarily like. So if you set a goal for once a week, and maybe you get to trade off, 1 week I teach her, and so once she's taught sneaky, you wanna go outside, sneaky. You want your food, sneaky. You want me to pet you, sneaky. So you're doing sneaky for everything. At the end of the week, you say, and she's sneaky. And then next week we switch it to something else. So if you do that for the next like 2 months or so, there's 8 or 9 new commands. That's a lot of boost of self-esteem that we give her. And that will help her, and also help her respect you guys as authority figures. Okay, so we also talked about rules. Some of the rules that I'll go over some of the easy ones. So, well, as you go over the ones we went over. So the first rule I suggest is the one everybody hates, is not being on the furniture. Order the X mats, put the X mats on the furniture, and that way it'll keep her off for you. And then you can always go down to her level. She just can't come up to your level. At the same time, I like to give them a dog bed, and I have a video for that. If you can't get her to go to the dog bed on command, let me know, I'll share it with you. This is already a pretty long video, so I don't want to explain it all here. It's easier if I send you compartmentalized videos. But every time I would take away a bit of furniture, I always like to give them a dog bed in the room at the same time. So any room that you hang out in, she should have a dog bed. And I would get one of those elevated dog beds outside. It's like PVC or plastic piping around it with a little netting. And you can put it wherever you want. And so she can just lay in there. It's kind of like a doggy hammock. So that way when she's outside, because I saw her jump up, I think, on the bench over here. And so that's closer to the table, and that invades. And so give her a dog bed wherever you want, and so that way it's a place for her to go, and you do give it that its own designation as well. So maybe you call that one Bermuda, and the inside it's called something else. So you can give her directional commands. Bermuda means go to this specific dog bed. Venice or whatever it means to go to that specific dog bed. So it can all have different names. That helps with a little bit better direction. So not being allowed to be on the furniture, and these rules will be in place for 3 months or as long as the problem is still going on. So furniture, no furniture. If she sleeps with you and you want to continue doing that, I would say you can do that, but only with an invitation. The bed is different. It's a more prestigious place, but we're dormant. So I don't think it has a hierarchical value the way that sitting in the living room is. Sitting here says we're peers. And for peers, listening to us is optional. And a lack of rules confuses dog and think we're peers. So what we're going to do instead is not be allowed on the furniture, condition to go to the X-mat, have to sit at the door, and that's that pre-mac we talked about. So I go to the door and I say sit one time. If the dog doesn't sit within 3 seconds, I walk away and I sit down nearby, and I wait for the dog to stop protesting, or 1 minute. And if it's protesting, I wait processing to stop before I start my 1 minute timer. Then I go back to the door, command to sit one time. If it doesn't sit this time within 3 seconds, I sit down for 2 minutes, then for 4 minutes, then for 8 minutes. Keep double length of time until eventually, when you say sit, she sits because she knows there's no second chance coming. And if I want what I want, I better do something to earn it, and I do it by sitting. Eventually, she'll sit at the door, so everybody's saying, can I go outside, please? And make sure you do that. Go let her open. When you go to the door, she gets up, tell her to sit again before you reach for the handle. I would also ask her to sit before you let her out of the car, before you open the front door to go for a walk, let her out of her kennel. In the kennel, you can actually go to a lay down. I would do sit first, but eventually the lay down. You have to lay down before I open the door to let you out. And make sure she's calm before you let her out of the kennel. If she's all basket case, that's the energy she's going to carry out. I've got videos on that if you want to go over that as well. All right, other rules: shouldn't be within 7 feet of anybody who's eating. So if we're outside, there's a nice table out here, and there's a rug around it, area rug. So basically, she should not be allowed on the blue rug when we're eating at the table. The rest of the time, she can come and go as she pleases. Now, I always try to teach a dog to do something first before I escort them out. So if she's here, what I would do is I take a treat and I would roll it just a couple feet off of the rug. She runs out, and I would say the word out. So out mean or vacate, or whatever the word is you want to use. So I'm putting in context. I roll the treat to motivate her to go out, and when she licks it up, I say the word out. Then I would throw it this direction, this direction, this direction, all different directions around the table. So you can say out, and she knows out means to vacate the blue carpet. And then you would use those escalating consequences to practice having her not go on there when there's food, and have the girls help you. Have them take their snack here, and you can be here policing it. And so the dog tries to go there, you step in between and you block it. Now it might be easier to do that inside, like in the kitchen is easier, because usually I have a small doorway, it's a small area to define. Out here, the dog could go onto the carpet in multiple ways. So I would prefer to do the out. And maybe again, that could be something the girls could do. All right, we're gonna practice out, and the girls throw the treat out here. And now the dog practices listening to girls. It learns a valuable skill set to leave or vacate an area, and everybody's happy. Other rules should be: you're not allowed to be in the kitchen when we're preparing food. You have to sit before I put a leash on you. Put your harness on. Just kind of look for other opportunities to incorporate rules or to have the dog not do things. So when you're in the kitchen cooking, dogs are not allowed to come to the kitchen. Are you vegan? Do you have any meat problem issues? So what I do is I jokingly say there's no entrapment laws for dogs, so I set up sting operations or entrapment. So what I do is I go in the kitchen. First of all, I roll the treats out so the dog goes out. And so once the dog knows it, I go in the kitchen, I tell the dog out. Then once it knows it, then I would give the treat after the dog offers the behavior. First, I roll it to get the dog to do it. Once they know it, then I ask for them to do it first, and I pay them after. So I go in the kitchen, I tell the dog out, it goes out, I give it a treat. Then I walk backwards. I'm facing, my hips and torso are facing the dog. Step backwards, pause. If the dog gets up and comes forward, step towards them. And you'll do this as a waltz back and forth a couple times before you take a step back, the dog stays there. Then you take another step back, pause in between each step, and keep your hips pointed at the dog. Then what I usually do is I get a piece of bacon, I microwave it, I put it on the counter near the edge to the kitchen, and then I do my meal prep. I pull out the ingredients, I grab the pots and pans, I turn the oven on, stove. It sure looks like I'm cooking. It sure smells like I'm cooking. I'm in the place that I cook. But every time I try to cross the threshold and come in, the humans are right on top of me. Red shirt man came and ruined it all. And so now the dog practices doing that when you have time to practice it as well. After a while, the dog will go in the kitchen, it'll just sit outside the boundary. That's also wonderful practice, that's self-restraint, self-control, and practicing alone that we talked about in the video above. So again, more opportunities for the dog to self-restrain, the better equipped they are to do that in different situations. Okay, so there are other rules probably that you can incorporate, so look for opportunities to incorporate them. Remember, rules are not mean, so enforcing them will help her feel more confident. We also talked about petting with a purpose and passive training. Petting with a purpose is if I would like to pet the dog, or the dog jumps up on me, or nudges me, I'm going to give it a counter order to tell it to sit or to lay down. If it's already sitting here, I tell it to sit over here or to lay down. Don't do shake. And if it does it within 3 seconds, I pet under the chin and I say sit, and I pet her as much or as little as I want. If she doesn't sit, I show her I have other things to do. I watch TV, make out with the wife, talk to the kids, whatever it is you want to do. Show her that I'm living my best life. I asked you to do something. If you can't be doing it, no problem. I'm not getting mad, but I want to do the next thing, and you're the ones missing out. Use the watchword of paycheck. It means I suspect you forgot to pet without a purpose. So even if I did it right and I'm petting her, and somebody comes up and says paycheck, I would stop petting her, say sit. If she sits, I pet her under her chin, say sit, and I explain. I asked her to sit. When you opened the door, she stood up, and I continued petting her. But thank you, because I do forget to pet without a purpose. And even if you want to pet her, she still has to do something to earn it first. You're going to catch yourself, you're petting her for no reason, just stop and then tell her to sit. And if she doesn't sit, remember, playing hard to get works great for dog training. Show her I got other things going on. The other flip side of that is called passive training, which is rewarding the dog when it organically offers the behavior they want. You can teach your dog to do weird things like this. I taught one of my dogs to grumble. When I'd come home, he would be all excited and jump up. I ignored him because any attention is validated. If I pet or correct a dog, stop jumping, calm down, calm down. If I say calm down, every time he jumps up, calm down means spaz out and jump up, because that's the context I hear. So when I come home, I just ignore the dogs completely. And they're spazzy. It used to be they were spazzy for 15 minutes. Now they're spazzy for about 10 seconds. They're like, oh, he's not going to engage with me. As soon as they relax, then I reach to pet them. They wiggle, I pull back. And I had to do this over and over again. When I come in now, one dog is sitting very calmly, and I'll go straight up and pet her. The other dogs, when they calm themselves down, that's when I pet them. So when you come home, don't be all spazzy with them. So basically, or don't reward the spazzy or the jumpy behavior. So basically, every time the dogs do the things that you want, or, well, getting back to my story, when I would ignore him, after a while, Quest started, he would bark, and I ignored that, he'd jump, I ignored that, and then he started going, roar, 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 which I thought was hilarious. So I petted him when he did that. So now he comes up and goes, roar, 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 to prepay for attention, and I say grumble. And so now, if it's your birthday, I hold up my camera, I'm like, hey, Quest, what's going on? And this is the hand signal I say behind the camera. And he goes, roar, roar. I'm like, yeah, I know it's her birthday. Roar. It's not nice to ask girls how old they are, Quest. Roar. I am not re-gifting. I do this funny video, I put it on the webpage. How would you teach a dog to grumble? Waiting for the dog to do it on its own. So every time she does anything, name all your individual toys. Every time she brings you a toy, give it a name. And so that way she brings you the toy, you pet her and say that name. After a while, she knows that that name means this specific toy. And then if you go play with her, you say, go get me the bumblebee. That's the pizza, I want the bumblebee. And she's a smart dog. And the more that we stimulate, again, that boosts that self-esteem and confidence, which will be a prophylactic help for a lot of the problems that you have. So passive training is celebrating the things the dog does that we want when the dog does it on its own. So playing an emphasis of doing it for sits, laying down, coming to you, come up with a fun word to eat food, and whatever that word is, for 4 months you say it. I say agua when my dog drinks water. Some of my clients call it like happy hour or Merlot or their favorite alcoholic drink. And your friends come over and you say Merlot, and the dog goes and starts slurping its water. And they're like, what do you got in there? But it's funny. Remember that fun command words can cause the dogs can read facial expressions. So all the new commands that you come up with, try to come up with a fun word that's like an inside joke for the family or for your friends. And so, if you come up with something, and you're in a certain community, so if you come up with something that's community related, your friends that come over, it's nice and endearing for them, and it helps them feel comfortable with it. Also, when you have friends come over, exercise her first. I would give all of your friends, you can give your friends something like this, loaded up with treats. I'm seeing someone now, but when I was single, I would wash my hair and shower and brush my teeth. If I meet a girl who's crazy enough to let me take her out, I'm at least prepared for it. So the dog's like, holy crap, this guest could hook me up with a treat anytime. I'm going to go sit in front of them and resit again. And now your dog is acting very well behaved, and your friends are like, oh my God, what happened to your dog? You're like, we had David from Dog Got Problems come over and he showed us. But no, we're rewarding the dog for the things that we want. Dogs do what gets attention from us, but we often don't realize that good attention and bad attention is the same thing. So we motivate them to do the things we don't want instead of the things that we want. Celebrating it is a great way to reverse that. So that's the watchword I use. I say celebrate. So if somebody says celebrate to me, I look and I just start petting the dog. I don't ask, I don't reach for a treat, I just start petting it immediately. Then I look at what it's doing and I say whatever the command word is. Remember, just the command word, not good sit. But standing there, I assume it's a come, pet it for come. After a while, the dog will start offering you those behaviors because that's the best way to get your attention. Now your dog's doing the things that you want. It's boosting its self-esteem, its confidence. Everybody's happy. Trying to think if there's anything else. I think we talked about the escalated consequences. I don't go over those on camera, but if you have questions about that, let me know. And you can also go to my website and search for invisible or kitchen. That's how I show you how to enforce that invisible boundary that we talked about on your carpet here. So if you want to watch me do it in person, let me know. Now, if you do want to set something to work on, like the doorbell has a special chime for the security system, heard it, ran that direction. If you want to fix that, let me know. And there's other stuff you want to work on. A lot of times, once we address the anxiety, people are like, oh, the dog also does this and this. Then it's, by contrast, it wasn't as big a deal, so we ignored it. But there's other things you want to work on, let me know. And if you end up hiring another trainer, just make sure whoever you hire is somebody that is positive reinforcement only. Sadly, in almost all over the country, most of the trainers still use the old force and punishment-based methods. If you have a dog that's insecure, it's going to break her spirit, it's going to make it worse. I don't think you guys would, but I've had clients that I didn't think that, and they hired somebody else. They just let everybody use positive reinforcement. They call themselves balanced trainers. And so they use shock collars and choke chains and punishment-based methods. Sometimes it's not super egregious, but it works by the threat of a negative. I don't really like to use negative. I like to use positive only, and I've had 4,000 plus clients that are happy didn't need to. So I think if you have to resort to punishment, you're probably not very good at your job. All right, well, normally I'd say this is Iggy, and this is Iggy's Roadmap to Success, but she's over there somewhere. So this is Iggy's Roadmap to Success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog, only sometimes you mean it.